today we're going to explain the different types of beings. This is a question that has been asked a number of times, so we're going to try and clarify that properly. So when we say being, we're talking about the fact that beings are referred to as supreme beings, right? So we're going to have a hierarchy of beings because most people are only familiar with the term when we say human being, right? So a lot of people will say, I'm a human being, or they will say, I'm human. But as we go through these different states or types of being, you're going to start getting familiar with the words, such as some will say, I'm a man. And man can also refer to woman, okay? So we will say mankind, or some will say mankind. And then you will have other states such as beast, and you can even keep going down further to saying terms like demon. Each one of these is a type of being. So when you look at the word human, it's actually a composition of two words, hu and man. If you start going into language and different cultures, you're going to look at this word is from ancient Egypt, which relates to creative will. People ask, well, what's the difference between these? And the higher up you go, so in terms of the hierarchy, supreme beings, like the highest attainment that you can have or will have, that means that you have mastered lower realms and the realms you're on. So this is like, let's say 9 and beyond, yeah? 9 to the 9th power of 9. And then you'll come down. These numbers are not relating in terms of sequence to this, but I'm just giving you numbers in terms of 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Just to indicate that most people are familiar with 1 to 9, because once you get to 9, you start the cycle again. 10 starts and it goes up to, 19. And then 19 will go up, right? So you'd get to 20, 29, and then so on and so forth, because each one is a cycle. So 1 to 9, then you start again from 1 to 19, then you start again from 20 to 29, and so on. All right. So going up is up in terms of vibration and frequency as well. This is faster or fast vibration, and coming down is getting to low vibration or slow. And this is to do with density and vibration and frequency. So the difference between the two, people will say, well, if I'm a man, what's the difference? Well, a kind of man, this is what we're saying, mankind, it's going to be different, and it's also based on your level of growth and attainment or composition. And a beast, if you say beast, what makes the difference between a human or mankind and beast? Well, beast, you're starting to deal with animals, you're starting to deal with a particular type of behavior. And when you go further down to saying demon, it's a behavior or attributes that will relate to doing very demonic things. And then you can even go further below to like subabodes or -1, -2 going downwards. And you can exist having all of these parts. So what people do is try to say, I'm up here, or I am a supreme being, and not accept that they have animal nature. So when we say beast, that is actually referring to being a mammal. And it's a state as well as, when I say state of mind as well as behavior, because if you are man, you're higher than being a beast, or you're supposed to have the state of mind or behavior which is more intelligent than a beast or a demon. Demonic or demons, they deal with really low emotions, a lack of soul. So the higher up you go, you're dealing with higher vibrations, soul. And the difference between a being and a supreme being is that you can be a supreme being, even though you might look at this as the highest. There are levels or states of supreme beings. So in terms of making it a bit clear, you have beings that if you're up here and you're vibrating on the higher abodes, then you have kind of mastered or supposed to have mastered the lower one. So I also look at these as realms. So if you're 9 here, then you would have mastered 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But if you're on 3, or let's say if you're on 4, then you've only mastered the lower ones, 1, 2, 3. So when we're dealing with beings trying to raise themselves to being supreme beings, because like, for example, you have beings that are from planet Risk, like the master teacher, Parnababyanun. Planet Risk, beings that reside on there are called Riskians. Just like here, we would say we are Earthlings because we reside on the planet Earth. However, even with beings that reside on Risk, there are beings that are known as Etherians. Etherians, which is a pure energy being. So an Etherian, even though it's a supreme being, not all Etherians want to come down here in terms of coming down in vibration or lowering their pure energy. As I was saying, being a supreme being, there are Etherians that have leave or they have the sanction. They can come down and go up at will, or come down and lower their vibration and go back. And when you're up here, you are not as physical. So going up goes more towards the ether, 9 ether, which is what? The combination of all gases, conscience and conscious gases, right? So that's what we say when we say 76 trillion years ago, we existed as etheric gases or pockets of ether. And then as you come down, right, you go from being pure ether. Yeah, remember that ether exists on these different realms, and the realms, there are 9 of them. Most people are familiar with the lowest one, which is physical, dealing with the physical realm. And then you have the spiritual realm, then you have the soul realm, then you have the mental realm. We have to reiterate this information over and over again so that, you know, it sticks. Because the more you go over something, the more you're going to get it. The mental, then we go up to the levels of ether, which can go up, as I said, in numbers. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ether. Okay, some of these higher levels of ether haven't been expounded on in detail by the master teacher, but you come down in terms of the low vibration, slow, things down here are more dense when we deal with density. So when we're dealing with density, what we're saying is that the higher up, the more potent or more pure the ether is, even though you can have everything is composed of ether because you're dealing with conscious and conscience gases. So that's why there can be nothing more powerful than 9 ether, because 9 ether is a combination of all of that. Why are we saying gases? Because when you're dealing with energy, as you're going up, it gets thinner in terms of the density. As we come down, things get heavy. So Riskians are beings that are very light, and they don't have mass in terms of they can move almost like floating or levitating, and they can go from one place to another in terms of transmutation or like traveling without time, because they're not really caught up or governed by the rules and laws that are on the lower realms or vibrations. So on each realm, they have different rules of engagement. What we experience on the physical or the material world is going to be different rules of engagement as to the ones on the spiritual, or when you're dealing with the soul, which ties into you having a soul or having a solar plexus, okay? Because your solar plexus is tying into the soul realm, but within you. So all of these different realms we're talking about, the etheric realm, the mental realm, the soul realm, the spiritual realm, the physical realm, they're all interlinked or interconnected. So when we come back to looking at the hierarchy of beings, even though you have the opportunity, mainly Nagaru or Negroid, because they are the ones with soul as 9 ether beings, you are a supreme being, but you're not a supreme being as in a pure ether being, because you're on the lower realms at the same time and vibrating down here. So you've been connected all the way and composed of all these elements. And so the physical body, for example, deals with you having a lower vibration to be able to deal with the environment that you're in. So with each environment, you exist on those levels, but at one point you're going to shed in order not to be on the physical realm anymore, dealing with the material or matter on its lowest levels. You're going to shed your physical body. Then you may just be existing on the spiritual realm. So you need a spiritual body, but that spiritual body has to be grown or able enough to be existing in that dimension, in that spiritual realm, as you are currently existing here, with the components that can take you to the next level. Just as here you have the mental realm, which ties into what? Your mind. Yeah, so your mind on the 4th realm, as you can see here, the mind ties into the mental. So again, when you're here in the physical, your mind, you have the ability to connect to the mental reservoir by way of your mind. But at the same token, when you start to shed the physical body, shed the spiritual, you now become a soul, and then you can shed that and go to becoming a pure mental being. So you don't need the lower aspects of yourself, because even when we say self, because you hear people say all the time. They'll say myself, which is separating you from what you're calling self. The self is the aspect of you that is differentiated from your physical body. So the idea is the higher you're going and you're now using higher vibrations and level, your thoughts, this is how you manifest by way of your mind, thoughts that you're pulling from the mental realm attached to the mental reservoir, you're pulling those thoughts down. And those thoughts are going to govern how you behave. And a word that people will use in terms of when you're saying these words like, I'm a human being, I'm a human, I'm a man, is dealing with intelligence, because your thoughts govern your action, you see? So beings that are going to be intelligent, a word you hear used is a word called civilized. They're saying you're civilized. But to be civilized is to stop you from dropping to being a beast or a demon and behaving in a demonic way, or like a beast which has no intelligence or intel in its genetic makeup, in its genes. So when we're saying intelligence, we're really saying in your genes, are you programmed by way of your DNA to think and act properly? But thinking is also a lower vibration to what? Reasoning. To be able to reason beyond thinking is to not fall down. So when I said who, man, we're saying to use your creative will and ability, which creativity is going to be tied into your soul as a soul being and having the ability to have the energy source that you're pulling from the soul realm or the higher vibrations to charge you up, to give you the ability to be raising from not, you won't act or behave like a demon. So you will know what's good from evil. You won't behave in a beast-like state where when we look at some of the actions of beings that are behaving like demons, that you're dealing with unaliving people, you're dealing with blood sacrifices, eating flesh, warring, arguing, all these things that deal with divisions and low vibration. This is why when we say mankind, you're talking about a kind of man that is not able to function on these higher vibrations, that does not have that creative will to be intelligent enough because of their genetic makeup. This is what we're calling or referring to Adamites, because even in the religious books, they tell you that when God created, even though they use the singular Adam, they're talking about a tribe, Adamites, he said they were weak and wicked and their thoughts were only evil continuously. So they weren't able to raise above the state of man, mankind, beast, and going down to demon. When I said about being civilized, even though they will say that someone who is behaving and acting a particular way is civilized, and try to say that people that are in the third world are uncivilized, when in reality, say for example, our ancestors were the civilizers. They actually taught and showed people how to live by way of the mystery schools and the information that everybody was going into Egypt to get, so they can learn how to rise and go above being in the lower states of being to become a supreme being. And today, this is what Wu-Sabat is teaching you, how to raise your vibration so you do not act like a kind of man. You don't have the bestiality or acting like an animal or using the part of you, the nature of the animal or mammal, and that you don't fall down and go down into doing demonic things. So really, there are different states of mind in terms of different people. When you look at them, you will now be able to go, that's a supreme being, that's a being, someone who's not quite there yet, but they're actually aspiring or going towards being a supreme being. You look at people that are just human beings, you look at people that are just humans. These will be like your NPCs, you know, they're just there, but they're not trying to go above. And then you have your regular man, and then people that are just like, they're just here, but they're not aware of the other states of beings that exist. And to take you from, you know, the lower realms to the higher realms to becoming a supreme being is what Pana Babylon and Dr. Malachi Ziyok is here to teach us and raise us. And to do that, you're dealing with your information to raise your mentality and your mind. And that's the link that connects you to the higher abodes. So I hope that's clarified the different types of beings. Our goal is to become a supreme being and to become an Etherian being, a pure energy being. So think of where you would say you fit right now in terms of the scale of beings. Are you a demon? And that might be hard for people to think about, but do you do demonic things? Are you a beast? Do you act like an animal that doesn't have any control over their own own mind, emotions, or how they behave. You know, are you a kind of a man? Are you a man? Are you human? Are you a human being? Are you a being, or are you a supreme being? Right? So remember, you can always send us questions to clarify anything we teach. Put it in the comment section, or send us 3 questions to OSM Vision at wetransfer.com. So until the next time, my name's Saken, student teacher of the Master Teacher Pana Babyanun. Wadu.